I want to know what gave you the right to come to my house and look for something that belongs to me.
An outraged resident of High River, Alberta. It's been 1 year since the flooding that led to the evacuation of the town, and residents are still demanding answers. Why did the RCMP break into homes, bash down doors, take guns from law-abiding citizens? Lauren Gunter joins us now from Edmonton. Lauren, you've been following this closer than most for the last year, hosting the Broken Trust documentary. Your thoughts on what's happened 1 year on?
Well, the RCMP are still denying they did anything wrong. I mean, we know from a letter that appeared last night from Marion Ryan, who's the commander of K Division for all of Alberta, the Mounties for all of Alberta. This letter was obtained by a firearms researcher named Dennis Young, who lives in Airdrie, Alberta. He picked it up from some retired Mounties who are disgusted by what the force did last year in High River. And we know from this letter that the RCMP are still denying they did anything wrong. Marion Ryan, who was on the ground in High River then, wasn't the commander of K Division, has been promoted since, is saying that, you know, that despite what a few media critics are saying, we did everything right. They don't understand why we had to kick down doors. Well, I don't. I mean, I've read her excuses. I've looked at all the documents. I still don't understand why they had to kick down so many doors.
Let me get to that point from her letter. I'll read it to you. It was not so much a letter, it's an email that went out. And it says, some media commentators continue to question why the RCMP and other emergency responders entered private homes in High River, but did not do so in other flood-impacted communities. The simple fact is that at the peak of the disaster, there were 65 people reported missing in High River, with 17 still missing when the door-to-door searches ended on June 24th. Lauren, you and I have looked at the facts. We've looked at the information that's come from the RCMP. Do you need to knock down 1,900 doors to find 65 people?
No, and the thing is that the critical date there is June 24th. Ryan says that when the door-to-door searches had ended, so they went to every home in town between June 20th and June 24th. When it ended, there were 17 people who were missing. In a city the size of 13,000 people, in a free country where you don't have to register your movements with the police or with authorities, there are going to be 17 people who can't be accounted for. After the 24th, the Mounties kicked in 1,300 doors. 1,300 doors after the 24th. They claim they were looking for these 17 people. That is absolute rubbish. It simply can't be. They went into homes where they had already been. They went into homes in areas of the town that had no flood damage, where the power and the sewage and the water were all still working. They went into homes 3 times, found guns, and never came back again. So you can't tell me that they were looking for survivors, that they were looking for these 17 people who wouldn't identify or couldn't be identified. That's just absolute hogwash.
So, you know, Marion Ryan gives out some information in this email that they haven't released elsewhere. There's been a lot of access to information requests filed on this. The RCMP have been slow. There is the RCMP Public Complaints Commission that's investigating. My understanding is they have been slow and reluctant to release information to them. Yet she's putting little tidbits in here, not giving full details, such as why local RCMP officers were removed, outside officers were brought in just before all the big door kicking started off. This is still a police force that doesn't think they did anything wrong, and that doesn't want to cooperate with the investigation, as far as I can tell.
And maybe they're not cooperating because deep down in their hearts, even at the level of Marion Ryan, they know they did something wrong. And if they divulge the information even to the Public Complaints Commission, they're going to be skewered for it. Or maybe they're in siege mentality. Unfortunately, a lot of police forces are, because every time they do something to bring down a violent criminal, they're criticized by the media party for being excessive and forceful, and so now they don't want to add to that by admitting to what they did in High River. It could be part of the same sort of CYA mentality, but it's really sad because the force now has lost a lot of credibility in Alberta, probably a lot of credibility across the country. I know that Alberta Emergency Services was reluctant in this past week to start ordering mandatory evacuations of communities that were maybe going to be flooded. Thankfully, the flooding this time wasn't anywhere near as bad as it was last year. But the emergency services were kind of reluctant to order mandatory evacuations because they'd been told by so many ordinary residents they weren't moving this time because they couldn't trust the police to stay out of their homes. I mean, the police went into people's drawers. They went into little boxes under the bed. They're not looking for survivors if they're in your underwear drawer. I mean, was sheltering in the underwear drawer.
There's so many shocking things that came out of that, even the justifications that we've heard so many times, such as a rifle inside a locked home, in a basement, in a closet, stored property behind boxes inside that closet, that's in plain sight and should be taken. You know, they have been checking their butts from the beginning, and it's sad because you say that they've lost support from so many people. These are the people most likely to say, I'll back the police. I'll give the police the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
And that's been eroded.
Yeah, and that's been being eroded since the Liberals' firearms law in 1995, and it came into effect in 1998, because it pitted police against law-abiding firearms owners who, as you say correctly, are the coefficient who are most likely to support the police. I mean, they're hunters, they own the hardware store, they work, they're painters, they're electricians, they're salt-of-the-earth people. But ever since the firearms law was brought in, they become the enemy in the eyes of police because they're administrative criminals. They might not be in full compliance with the particulars of the Liberals' firearm law. And the High River situation simply made that much, much worse.
All right, Lauren, great talking as always. We'll chat soon and hopefully soon have a copy of that report from the RCMP Public Complaints Commission.
August now.
August, well. Email us your thoughts on what's happening in High River 1 year later. Byline @sunmedia.ca. More to come.